Hi guys, in this video we're going to cover unwrapping the barrel that we modelled in the last video. One thing that I did actually do in between recording this and the last one is, I forgot to do this on the last video, but I went in and can you see the red edges there? They were all kind of like one edge, and I went in and chamfered them all just by selecting them all and then just pressing chamfer down here. Just because when you do take it into engine, it'll just make the light react nicer with those edges, because nothing in real life it has a perfectly sharp edge. So when you take stuff in, even if it is low poly like this, I would still consider this object low poly and basic, even with that chamfered edging. So pretty much all engines can just handle that. So, but that's something I did before, in between these two videos. So what we're going to cover today is unwrapping. So the first thing you need to do, one thing I have done is I've changed the colour up here to like pink or whatever, because if you had a blue colour like I had before in the last video, you'll really struggle to see the unwrap seams that we're about to create. So what we're going to do is, I'm just going to go onto the modifiers, type in unwrap UVW, pop that on the top there. I'll just collapse that so we don't have that lingering. And you can see there's like a green seam on it already. That's just a map seam. So if you scroll down on the right hand side, you can just turn off map seams because we don't need that. But what we're going to do is I'm going to show you, there's lots of different ways you can unwrap. But I think one of the best ways to know across the board is to just be able to do the point-to-point seam unwrapping, which is basically like you're cutting it up along the edges and the verts. And you just have a lot of control over where the seams are going to be. Well, you have 100% control over where the seams are going to be. So it's an ideal way of doing it. And when you get a little bit more into the 3D modelling, you start doing, characters or more, complicated models. This is the way that you'll want to go about it. So we'll just go right in. So if you click on vertex, and then you want to click this point-to-point seam selection thing here, and you can see this kind of orange orange edge shows up. And when in older versions of 3ds Max, you'd have to click on the vertex here and then kind of like follow this dotted line and drag it to the next one. But they've kind of optimized it, so now you can just click in between the verts, almost like you're just doing an edge selection. And as long as the orange line is going where you want it to, then it's completely fine. So what I'm doing first of all is I'm cutting this the top part of the barrel just completely off. So we're just cutting around that fully in a circle like that, and then just check you've got it all. And then we'll do the bottom as well. I'm just going to turn the grid off again because that's super annoying. Move that. Yep. So just do the same thing here. It's quite a lot easier than it used to be. You used to have to just do it like vertex by vertex. Woo. See, if you do that because you're rushing like I am, just press Ctrl Z. You guys shouldn't be rushing. I'm just trying to make the video less than 20 minutes long. So, right, yeah. So we're just gonna go around, do all these. You'll have to bear with me because I've only just started doing these YouTube tutorials, and I haven't really got any video editing software yet, so this is all being done in one take, hence why I keep doing stuff wrong. and I've left it in. Right, so we've got the top and bottom part of the barrel separated. So when we unwrap it, it's basically kind of like if you made a box out of paper and you were then gonna like fold it up and create it and make a cube from a flat piece of paper. That's what we're doing, but we're working backwards. So we're making our 3D asset into a 2D object by cutting it up. And I might have probably just confused everyone just then, but just bear with me. So now what we need to do is make sure the barrel here is flat. So we need to cut a seam all the way down the bottom. So I'm going to do it from this side, just because it just is easier for me to see from here. Right, so it's quite easy to see with the orange line where it's going, but it's going to take the easiest path through where I'm clicking. You can click vertex to vertex if you want to be really careful. You might have to do that if you've got a more complicated model, but this one's quite simple. The lines are really straight. So we're just connecting it at the other side there. And if you want to click off this selection tool, you just right click, by the way. That's what I've been doing. Sorry if I didn't mention that before. But if you see now, the bottom part of the barrel's cut off. There's a seam all the way up the side, so that'll unwrap flat. And then there's this top bit. This top bit's also cut off. So now what we need to do is separate these metal bits here, 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 and here from the wooden part here, just so that when we unwrap it, those textures, I'm going to move them separately from the wood, and no wood texture is going to bleed into the metal texture, and it'll just look a lot cleaner. And it'll it's just how I go about it. So it's quite difficult to see at this point, but I'm just going in and cutting off basically, or putting a seam down where this metal kind of like ring thing is. Still haven't figured out what to call this bit. I probably should have googled that. The barrel ring, I don't know. Anyway, we're cutting it off all the way around. It's going to be a bit tedious watching me do this because I haven't figured out the ability to speed up videos or edit them at all at this point. So you'll have to just kind of watch me go in real time, which is exciting. But so you want to cut it off at the top, and then you're going to do this exact same thing again at the bottom here. There we go. Oh, don't do that. There we go. And yeah, it does take, the unwrapping does take a minute to do. Ooh, not that bit. But you do have to be, you have to be super careful with it, because the better kind of optimized the unwrap is, and the more it makes sense, the easier it is to texture, and the better the texture will look on your 3D models. And the reason we unwrap is just so that we can, and you really need to stop doing that. It's just so we can have complete control over every aspect of what we want this asset to look like. So if we want to put a scratch or some rust or anything like that, we want to have complete control over that and basically like paint onto it as if it was a blank little model. So I've got that first one. I'm just going to do the second one now. I'm just going to go all the way through. All the way around. I'm just trying to see how far forwards I can skip ahead actually doing this. You guys need to be much more careful than I'm being. Don't try and do it this fast, because it's going to go horribly wrong. There we go. See, horribly wrong there. Cool. And then again underneath. I'm just going to have to do this 4 times. But yeah, you may have different ways that you've been going about texturing your models so far. Ideally, you want to stop doing that and do it this way, just because a lot of the ways I've seen everyone in class texturing, it's kind of been like dragging and dropping, polygon selecting what tileable texture you're going to put on each thing. And like, yeah, that's fine if you're doing like a really basic kind of environment, or like a brick texture on a wall. But when it comes to putting detail in, you want to get those little kind of nuances into your artwork. So like the barrel, you're going to want to have rust around the edge of the metal bit, and you want to have you want the individual planks of the barrel, like the wood on the barrel, to you want it all to be different and have character. And you're certainly not going to get that from just having a tileable texture placed directly on top. And also, if anyone wants to go down the route of doing hand painted textures, like, I don't know, World of Warcraft, then you really, really have to do it. You just have to do it this way and just stick with it. But I remember the first time I unwrapped a 3D model, and I just thought, oh my god, I could not get my head around it, because working in 3D space for the first time is quite kind of difficult to get your head around anyway. So if it's taking you a while to figure it out, don't worry, because it took me about 2 years to do it properly, so you're not alone. So we've got one more to do at the bottom here. I hope you're enjoying my little weird rants that I'm having to go on, because I'm having to fill this silence. Maybe I'll just pick a topic next time and talk about that. But yeah, this kind of unwrapping, you can apply this to much more complicated models. You'll be able to put it on characters' faces, like you'll be able to pelt map that. Pelt mapping is something we're going to do in a second. But you basically, you're telling the 3ds Max where you want the seams to cut, basically like scissors. So, right, one last bit. So this bit, you could, in theory, leave these kind of extruding metal parts on and just let it unwrap completely flat with these bumps just kind of, there. But then when it comes around to texturing it, the only thing that's going to be that's going to stop the wood and the metal from kind of bleeding into one another is how high res your texture is. So it's better just to move it completely off. So that's why we're doing this. I think I've got it all now. Yes. So, right, that's all cut up now. And as you can see, there's like little blue lines everywhere. And we've got a big seam down the back here and the top of the barrel and the bottom of the barrel. So what we've got to do now is we've got to relax it. In fact, I'll just show you. If we open up the UVW map first. Come on, scroll all the way to the bottom because I'm a noodle. Here we go. Open UV editor. So, right, if you click down here when this box pops up, you want to click polygon selection in the bottom left, and then you also want to select by element, just so you're not grabbing one polygon at a time, because that is not what you want. So, as you can see, this is basically this space here is your UV map, basically. This is the space that you're going to be working on when you take it into Photoshop, this bit here. So what we're trying to do is these are all the polygons like stacked on top of each other at the moment. So what we need to do is relax this. So sometimes the thing with unwrapping is you do have to do a bit of trial and error, because at the moment they haven't been relaxed at all. And by relaxed, I mean it's been cut up, but the UV map doesn't know what to do with it, so it's all stacked on top of each other like that. So if we go over onto the right hand side over here, where it says pelt map, we can click that button. Woo! We can press start pelt. Woo! Start relax even. And as you can see, it's kind of working its way around like that. It looks a bit scary at the moment. We're just going to press commit. And I'm going to individually move all of these different pieces apart. So here, that's the top bit there. And every time you select it, it'll kind of select it in the 3D space here. These bits are a bit crazy looking at the moment. They're the ones from underneath. The reason they're still in a circle is because they haven't relaxed properly yet, even though there's a seam going the whole way down the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select them all like that, because I want them all spaced out a bit. I'm just going to scroll down here and just press pack custom. In fact, no, Control Z, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to separate them out by hand, just moving them around. Make sure you've got this selection tool up here selected so you can move stuff freely, not like I was doing it before. So at the moment it kind of looks a little bit crazy. It's like, oh my god, look at all these different hoops essentially. But if we grab this, move them up here, if we kind of select them all and then go on tools, relax, and then relax by polygon angles and press start relax, you can see they start looking more like the bits that we cut them up into. This guy over here has done a fantastic job. So I'll move him or her, over there. These ones are a little bit kind of wormy looking still, and that's fine. Because it's a barrel, and I know that I know pretty much that all of these bits will stack on top of each other. You can grab them. In fact, it probably is better to do it individually at a time. You can grab them and you can relax them again individually if you try, but it will relax it as much as the software feels that it can, but it's not a person, so it doesn't really kind of understand. But if you do that on each one, I just press stop when it gets a little bit straighter. This one here is a little bit crazy looking too. We'll try that one again. You kind of just have to go through this. It is trial and error. Sometimes you'll press relax and it'll just start spinning and it'll go crazy, and that's usually because you've not completed a seam. But because this is a barrel, one thing we can do is we can grab these bits and we can press up here. If we press straighten selection, this will only work if you've only got a line of polygons like we have, like that. But given that it's, you know, it's a barrel, we can just press here and press straighten selection and it makes it straight like that. You can do it on all of these too. Whoop. So now they're all kind of wild looking like that. They just kind of look all straight, which is fine. I'll just move that. So we have relaxed these, but if we straighten stuff up, what you can do is you can go back through and relax them again, and it tries to take it back to the shape that it kind of was before, just puts in a bit of a more natural kind of shape. But what we're going to do now is kind of organise all of these bits into areas. So these are the top wooden bits. This is the middle big bit. So I kind of put that over there because that's going to be wood. And I'm just basically going through, figuring out which bit's which and where it belongs. Because we want all of the metal bit on one side. So that's metal 2. That's the top metal bit. I think that's a metal bit as well. We want all the metal bit in one area and all the wooden pieces in another. I think these two are wood. Yep, that's the top and bottom layer. Yeah. Because when it comes to texturing it, it's just easier to remember what these little kind of squares and stuff mean if they're all in clusters. I'll turn this round though. If you click up here on rotate, you can just spin this around like that. I have got the angle snap on because I find it easier. But if you don't have angle snap on, it won't do it at 5-degree angle, so you'll have to be very careful. So these are the metal bits. So that's that bit there. We can just pop those there, and these are the two smaller ones at the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to put those close together over there. Move those around here. So yeah, as you can see, that's our UV map at the moment. These are all way too big at the moment, but we are going to shrink them down and optimize them in a second. What I'll do is I'll move these down here. You can spend a lot of time kind of like straightening these out. I might straighten these two out because they should really be straight. I'm not going to make those anything else. This bit here should in reality, really, it should be the same length as this bit, because if I just take off element, this polygon here should line up with this one here. But as you can see, when we relaxed it, it did kind of shrink these other bits, and it will do that. So you do have to go in and tweak and resize these bits so that all the polygons here are relative to each other size-wise. Another thing you can do though, if we turn that back off, it does kind of make it a little bit easier. Turn it back on actually for a second. If we make these all rotated the same way, and this one too, and then move them next to each other, one kind of trick that you can do is, I'm resizing them right now, just uniformly, because we kind of can see, because it's a barrel, we know that these horizontal lines all line up with each other, or they should do. They should line up with each other. So if we make that a little tiny bit bigger, move it down. So we can kind of cheat on this one. You won't be able to do this with all of your models, but this one's quite a decent one to do. If you go onto vertex selection there, you just need to make sure that all of these, and make sure you've got element selected off. Make sure that all of these are kind of in line with each other. Some people will go through, and there's a button that you can press if you ever mess up a line here, like if you accidentally move one of these, there's a button you can press. I'll just show you now. I'll select these two. here, you can align horizontally, and if you press that, it finds the average, and it'll just line them up completely horizontally, which is really good. And you could, in theory, go through and do that over and over again to all of these, but I'm not going to do that. I don't expect you guys to do that either, but if you ever need to kind of like make sure these are all in line, you can do. I might straighten up these bits a little, just because this is just the top and bottom parts here. And when we're going on and putting on our wood texture in Photoshop on the next video, it might be easier to, if we can see the planks going horizontally, because like this here would be one plank going all the way top to bottom. This would be another, etc. Like, so you can go through and tidy these up a little bit. I will let you guys do that because I'm very aware of trying to keep these videos not too long. So I'll just do the last couple. But what I'm going to do now is just the next step, basically, is we put element back on and click on polygon again. The next step is shrinking these all down. Zooming in. We need to fit all these into this box, but we need to try and use up as much of the space as possible. You don't want to have gaps, basically. So these two bits here, we'll leave those out for the moment. This wood, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it this way, and that's purely because when I'm painting or texturing or whatever in Photoshop, I much prefer to kind of draw up and down and side to side. That's literally it. And these polygons, if I just try and select a bunch down there, if I just try and kind of do that, no, that's not going to work because I've left element on. This is why I need to edit my videos. But here, look, if I try and select that, that's a plank from top to bottom, apart from that one that I've just accidentally grabbed there. But it's just going to be much easier to texture it, and it'll just look a lot better. So one thing you can do is if you select the individual polygons, you can select them on here, and then you can kind of like see where they kind of match up on here, which is always good. As you can see at the moment, my whole thing is flipped upside down, which is great. So I'm just going to rotate it 180 that way. Try not to use this mirror tool unless you need to, because if you do a texture like and then it's mirrored, it will literally mirror it. So you could be doing some like, you could do like a barrel logo that's like branded into the wood, and then when you get it into the engine you go, oh, the logo's on backwards, and it's because you've mirrored it. So try and avoid that unless you need to do it, but you know, just for the moment while we're all beginners, let's just stick to rotating things. I think that's for the best. Let's move these along here. So yeah, I'm just going through. I'm going to resize these up a bit because this wood texture, the bigger it is, the more space it takes up on the UV, the higher quality it will be in the end, because this square is what we take into Photoshop, this checkered square. So the bigger that we make this, just the more pixels that we can basically use, and the better resolution it'll be. Because you don't want to have them shrunk down real small, or it'll just look daft. Let's pop that back on. So yeah, this is the bit that we're doing at the moment is just going through, kind of resizing this, all making sure it all fits in nicely. This is something like, obviously because this first one's a barrel, or if you do a crate or whatever, that it won't take you very long to unwrap and to sort these out. But when you get to more complicated models, you need to spend time doing this and aligning it all and doing it properly. I'm trying to make sure that these lines go down like this, because this is where I'm going to be painting onto it. So what I can see here is these are a bit wobbly. So I'm taking element off. So I'm going to do horizontal align this time, which is this button up here. Sorry, linear. Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. It's this one here, sorry, vertical align. And that'll just make these edges, you know, these verts line up properly. You don't have to do this. It just makes it much easier because each one of these is going to be a plank, like I keep going on about. So it's just going to be, it'll let me know where to, at what point to draw the lines and stuff. And it'll be really, really super easier when we go back to shading and stuff. But yeah, another thing I'm going to do is these edges that I've chamfered, they've not got much geometry on them. I'm just going to drag that down a tiny bit. I'm going to drag that down a tiny bit. It doesn't matter too much. It's just for my benefit. If you hold shift while you're moving things, by the way, it'll move them just up and down rather than just trying to guess your way by doing that. So shift is your friend. But yeah, right, let's go on to these metal parts now. That's taking up quite a bit of room, which is what we wanted to do. These metal bits, they're so small on the actual barrel themselves. I'm just going to shrink them down because they don't need to be that big. They're not going to have much detail on them. They're just going to have like a grey metal kind of texture on them. But this is the stuff you need to be considering when you're doing other models. So put that selection back on. Move these up a tad. Ooh. It would be useful if you clicked polygon first. There we go. Cool. So what we need to do now is put these two in. These two, I'm going to make them bigger. I'm going to make them bigger than they necessarily would be in respected to this, because I have scaled those up a little. So if I just scale those up. Ooh. There is going to be, when we finish packing this, there's going to be a big gap over here, which is unfortunate. Because ideally, what you want when you've finished all this is you want to have everything tightly packed together. Make sure nothing's overlapping here. Make sure none of these are overlapping each other, or your textures will bleed over. So make sure you've got a bit of a gap. There's quite a lot of a gap there, but we've got quite a lot of UV space on this map. But sometimes, a lot of the other time, you'll be modelling and texturing things. You won't end up having this much space. It's just because it's quite a simple model. But if you modelled onto the barrel, like little kind of rivets or, like that cork hole thing that was on the front, they would probably fill up this space here. You don't really want this dead space here because it's just a waste of UV space, but that can't be helped today because it's just, that's the way it's gone. But right, so now you've got all of this in a nice kind of neat pack. So what we need to do is go on File, Save UVs. Oh god, no, you don't want to do that. We need to render out the UV. Sorry, I went on the wrong one. So you want to go into Tool, Render UVW template. So this is going to make it into a PNG that we can then take into Photoshop and texture. The size of it, I think it's standard set to 1024. I'm going to leave it at 1024. I mean, you could make it smaller because it is just a barrel. 1024 might be a bit large, but considering we want this to be quite... I'm going to do 2 texturing tutorials, one hand-painted and one just realistic-ish. I'm going to leave it at 1024, but in the future you might want to kind of like think about that and make them like, I don't know, half as big. But yeah, so I'm going to untick Show Overlap. In fact, no, you can leave that on because it will tell you, it will show up in red if any of your verts or anything are overlapping, because you don't want that to happen, obviously. Visible edges, seam edges, the background. I'm going to change background mode to solid, and that'll make the background black. But yeah, so now what we can do is go Render UV template, and here it is. Ooh, so all this black bit is that's the dead space basically, but this this grey bit is what we're going to be texturing onto. So you just want to go and Save Image. We'll call it barrel UVW, and then just save that. Ooh. And we're going to save it as a PNG. I like PNG, so we'll just save that as UVW, click save. I'm just going to leave that as it is. I don't want it to be grayscale. I'm going to leave it as that. The alpha channel's fine. I'm just going to click OK. And then that's that. So that is how you unwrap a model. one thing that you need to be sure to do is close this, and then you want to close that drop down bit there, right click and collapse all. So it turns it back to an editable poly, but it keeps the unwrap on. So if I go and put on the unwrap again, it'll have saved all of that hard work we just did. And there it is. It's still there. So yeah, cool. In the next video, we're gonna cover texturing this in Photoshop, just basic texturing. I'm going to do one video on making it like a realistic barrel with proper wood textures and stuff, and then I'm going to do a quick tutorial on a hand-painted style one, just in case you wanted to do any more stylistic kind of environments or anything like that. But yeah, right, cool, thanks guys.